All systems nominal.
You wanna know what the weak point of a mech is? The fucking pilot.
Get away from her, you bitch!
His papers say he was a raven.
Protocol 3.
Welcome to On the Shoulders of Giants, a giant robot power hour discussing mechs across media, their stories, and why we love them. I am Brian, and I am joined forevermore by Alice.
All right, that's a 7 + 2 talk to podcast.
That's a mixed success, unfortunately. And I am also joined by Nico.
See, I rolled with confidence to podcast, but I rolled 2 2s.
And the top 10 anime tragedies. This time around, we are discussing something a little bit different, but equally or perhaps even more homoerotic than our usual fare, the Tabletop RPG Armour Astir Advent by Briar Sovereign. Let's launch into it.
Dungeons & Dragons is one of over 300 fantasy role-playing games on the market today. At least 4 million players have accepted the invitation to enter into the fantasy dream world of sorcery, swords, and demons.
We have never covered a tabletop RPG before on the show.
I'm really excited to cover one, especially there's so much happening in that sphere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the huge Hasbro layoff. I'm sorry.
Too soon.
Yeah, the official OSG stance is fuck Hasbro. Fuck Hasbro extremely.
Fuck Hasbro forever.
You know what Hasbro has? 0 mech TTRPGs.
Yeah.
Also, what's a TTRPG?
A TTRPG stands for tabletop role-playing game. This is the most sort of cultural consciousness example of this is D&D. Although the game that we're talking about today has pretty much, except for in its DNA, nothing to do with D&D.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Armour Astir Advent is the I don't know edition of Armour Astir. Briar doesn't know either. It's, making PDFs is a thing.
You can just make them. It's free.
Yeah, you can just make them. It's crazy. The most widely accessed and publicized version of the game was launched to 1.0 in February of 2022. And that is just straight from itch.io's website, like the Briar's weregazelle.itch.io. Go buy the game, by the way, weregazelle.itch.io. Go do it now. It's a matter of life and death.
What was that?
That was a flash transmission.
Yeah. So fundamentally, it is something called a Powered by the Apocalypse game, which, unlike something like D&D, for example, is a lot more like role play focused. The game system as it stands serves more as scaffolding to tell a cool story than it does to do math or like crunch numbers or like keep track of like how many arrows you have, that kind of thing. So it is very good at doing things like, and we'll talk about this more in detail, homogenizing the relationship between the pilot and the mech in terms of like who's taking damage, what are the stats of these things, that kind of thing.
You become the mech.
You become. And the other thing that's nice about Powered by the Apocalypse is unlike like a D&D like where we have to kind of go through and talk about all the different dice you use, you are basically only ever rolling 2d6 plus a stat. So a D6 is a
6-sided die, the kind you'd find in a Monopoly set or anywhere else.
6.
A Momnopoly, yeah. Since you online people aren't gamers enough,
I just wanted to make sure.
No, we should make sure. That's what I was about to say, is if we drop any lingo.
My notes are so funny because every time I dropped lingo, I moved on and then I immediately backed up and was like, wait, I need to put something in brackets here, which led to me Googling things like, actually, what does SRD stand for? And what does OSR stand for? Like, I knew, but I didn't know confidently enough. It's like when you use a word and you're like, I know what this means. And then you're like, I am just going to check with Merriam-Webster real quick.
I don't know if we can drop this in here, but you're a published TTRPG contributor, and you did not know what SRD knew?
I knew what it meant, but, like, you know what I mean? If I'm going to talk about it into a microphone, I want to make sure I know.
No, for sure. That makes sense.
It means sword, by the way. I'm not an idiot. Sword.
Capital S, lowercase o, capital R, capital D.
Look, I beef with TTRPGs. Tabletop, that's not 2 separate words. That's 1 word. You don't capitalize both T's. Anyway, continue, Brian.
Damn. Owned. The The TRPG community has been thoroughly owned.
Finally, someone's beating up those fucking nerds.
Okay, Bri.
What did you guys know about Armour Astir before we... I guess one thing we should say at the top is we play this game. We are in the middle of playing a campaign of this game.
Yeah.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure.
And all three of us are in that game. I am the DM, or as in the system is called, the director. So Alice, did you know anything about Armour Astir?
Absolutely not. So my thoughts on the TTRPG space, and I'm going to just kind of lay it out there. And it's both a great and a terrible thing. There is a lot of it out there.
Yes.
A lot of one-sheets, a lot of actually kickstarted stuff that you can never get a copy of anymore, a lot of itch.io ones. You know, there's a lot once you start going under the surface, and it's very hard because a TTRPG is a commitment with your friends. Like, yeah, you can do a one-shot, but let's be honest.
Can you do a one-shot?
I can't.
Can anyone really do a one-shot?
I can. We're going to finish that sub game that we did for Halloween 2 years ago. Any day now. No, but I guess my thought is what's the thing where you're like, there's too much noise?
Overstimulating or
it's
overwhelming?
Overstimulating. It's overwhelming to try and engage with that space. And so I fall back
100%.
on the perfect model of sit around, try and look cute, and be invited to games. And it's worked so far.
It really has actually worked so far.
But yeah, I had no idea until you brought this to the table. And you had even dropped before we ran the game that you wanted to run this. And I was like, when it starts, I'll look into it. And then when we finally started, I was like, oh. But that's my experience with AA.
I was possessed. I was like, I want to run this game. And then 2 days later, I dropped like a full 30-page...
world building document,
a PDF,
glossy PDF,
a PDF. You can just make them.
You can just make them. They're free.
You can just make them,
especially if you use company software.
I pay my own InDesign subscription. Okay.
Wow.
Finally, we can get that Adobe sponsorship.
You're not rocking with time theft and resource theft.
Time theft.
Anyway, Nico, what did you know about this game?
Well, as will become a running theme throughout this episode, I am a listener to Friends at the Table, the actual play podcast.
Yes.
Which was, as we'll find out in Brian's wonderful interview that Brian did with Briar Sovereign, was, of course, instrumental in the design and the inspiration for this game. So, I mean, I've been listening to that show for a long time, and hilariously, I haven't listened to any of the episodes where they actually play Armour Astir.
Nailed it.
I didn't listen to The Road to Partisan, and I didn't listen to The Road to Palisade or Palisade, so I missed kind of a lot of stuff. I'm behind, guys. I have a lot of audiobooks, and then I started making a podcast too. I need to devote more time to other people's podcasts. But so all I really knew about it was that they had played it in The Road to Partisan. So I knew it was in the air, and I knew it was a game that had been played by the crew at Friends of the Table. But again, I hadn't listened to those episodes. I had been looking into Beam Saber for a while in terms of like wanting to run a game.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's interesting you bring up that this is a game it's a Powered by the Apocalypse game. Powered by the Apocalypse has kind of a counterpart in Forged in the Dark games. Those two game systems came out of, I believe it was an independent TTRPG forum. Those two were like the big titans that emerged from that, and they've become really pivotal in the independent tabletop role-playing game space. And Beam Saber...
They really are the big two.
Yeah, Beam Saber, by contrast with Armour Astir, is, I believe, a Forged in the Dark game.
Yep.
It's crunchier. I'm sure just as fun. I never got a chance to play it because when Brian was like, I'm going to run a mech game, I was like, sweet, you mean I don't have to run it? And then I immediately cannibalized one of the NPCs that I was going to have in my Beam Saber game and played her. And I'm very glad I did now because I'm enjoying it a lot. So.
And I'm really glad that Brian ran it and not you so we could have a conclusion. But
wow!
Dirty laundry on the pod.
I'm being slaughtered live on air. I'll go on the record. I'm bad at finishing things.
Not me, ladies.
It's a good thing we started a pod that doesn't really like have a conceivable end.
That's the best part. It ends whenever we want it to. It can just be done. This could be the last episode, and it cuts here.
That's it.
No, it ends the day that Alice slaughters me live on air and I actually drop dead from psychic damage.
I hope so. Brian, where did you find it? Like, where did you find this game? Where did you get this?
Did you find it in somebody's basement or in the woods, like people be finding old Playboys?
No, I also came to it via Friends at the Table.
Now, for me, what is Friends at the Table? I'm gonna level with you.
Friends
what
at the Table is an
actual play podcast focused on critical world building.
What's happening? What is this?
Friends at the Table is what's called an actual play podcast, which is when a bunch of nerds record themselves playing a tabletop RPG.
Okay.
They have a big, long mythology of mech stories that they tell in the same universe. And so this latest iteration is told through Armour Astir. The previous iteration of this universe was told through Beam Saber. So those are like kind of the... It as an artifact has kind of positioned those two things as like the two of the larger mech RPG properties.
Okay.
So yeah, that is how I came to it. They announced they were doing they actually announced at the end of Partisan, the previous Mech Universe season, that they were going to be doing Armour Astir. And so like that was kind of when I first heard it. And then they started doing the Road to Palisade, which is like their lead up. Like they'll actually play a bunch of different games in what they call the Road to, which is like 10 to 15 episodes of just like random shit happening in the universe. And so when that was happening, I was like, oh no.
Oh no.
I'm going to die if I don't play this game. And so here we are today.
You're alive. We're all happy.
With me being alive, so.
We injected Armour Astir straight into our veins, and we're here to talk about it.
Translators know Armour Astir is a pun of mobile suit.
Yeah.
So if you're ever in doubt of how to pronounce it, it is Armour Astir.
What's an Astir?
Well, so like Astir means something that's moving, right? And then armor, so like armor suit, mobile, Astir. Get it?
Alice looks like she is hacking into the mainframe right now to understand this.
I'm gonna level with you. I thought that was a fake word up until this moment. I was like, oh, it's like some fun, cool noun that they chose. Astir.
No, it's just British.
Fun, cool noun.
Okay. Yeah, anyway, let's go to the break. I need to reconcile this.
Hey, Nico here in the break. Just wanted to let you know that while this is a podcast, and we'll always do our best to describe visuals we're commenting on, we'll also include links to the mechs and images we discuss in the show notes, and post actual photos on our show website. Along with that, make sure to check the show notes for content warnings as appropriate to the episode. That's all for now. Back to the show.
Did you guys know this word was real?
Yes.
Yes.
Like, you didn't have to look this up. You read the title of this game and you were like, oh, I know what that word means. Where did you learn this word?
Yeah.
I do hate to tell you, you are on a podcast with 2 English majors.
I've never read a book with this word in that, and that says so much about me. This has never come up in any 40K novel.
These words are not in the Bible, but it's Alice saying this has never come up in a 40K novel.
I know Beam Saber is available on the PlayStation VR. Where do you play Armour Astir?
God.
That's my last joke. Let's get into it.
Is Beam Saber... Oh,
It's a PC exclusive. It's for your player character.
I am so done with you.
We are not even like 20 minutes into this, boys. We're ready for this. I'm excited. Let's do it. First off, cover. I love women.
You know, me too.
I keep forgetting who did this art. The person who did the cover art did most of the art.
There's a huge variety of different art in this book.
Huge, yeah.
Zach Morrison did the cover and back.
Zach Morrison did the cover and back. So the cover art that we see on the front here, which has got a wild mix of different stuff going on in it.
This is a mixed genre game. There is magic and also room for hard sci-fi. There is room for both. You can homogenize or like boil the magic in this game down to hard sci-fi if you want, or you can do the opposite thing, which is kind of the core intent. We in our game split the difference. There's plenty of far future hard sci-fi stuff, and there's also plenty of like witches and demons and shit.
we went full Metal Gear Solid with it, you know.
We kind of did, yeah.
So yeah, one thing I'll say, this book does an incredibly good job. As someone who has tried and failed to write role-playing games, and as someone who has been a contributor on a published role-playing game, one of the hardest fucking things in the world is having your quick start elements. And this quick start gets you through
It's really good.
a major
It's
part
really
of
good.
world building, building a ship, creating characters, and then just launching into the game in a page and a half.
Single
and the
page.
half page is literally just notes on how to get the world building hammered out.
I do want to say right off the top with this quick play sheet, which number one, love it. Anything where I don't have to reference other things to actually just start playing the game is great. But something that, listening to your interview and this, Briar is Gundam pilled like me. They start this with like some of the like keys to like key you into like what you should be thinking of. So like common Astirs, your Zaku's, your Nemos. I died. That's when I was over. I was like, I have Gunpla of both of those. I love them. Oh boy.
I love this Gunpla character. You need to bring this character around more.
I don't know if they're gonna come back.
No, that's Alice's character voice for the captain in our game.
Hey, she's French, not. Maybe we kind of talk about like the core gameplay loop, because like how this game is structured, how the crews of the carriers are structured, the carrier as a structure. I think that informs so much of why this is an enjoyable gameplay loop.
Exactly. And another thing about it too is that it has like an ingrained loop, you know, instead of a lot of other RPGs, which are just kind of like, here's some tools, here's some stuff, here put together, go have a little adventure, right? This game actually has like 3 distinct modalities that it expects you to cycle between in order to get like the full experience out of it.
And I think that's interesting. One of my notes was, you know, in terms of talking about TTRPGs and the structures of things, I mentioned, and Brian mentioned, Powered by the Apocalypse games, Forged in the Dark games. Those brand names kind of refer to system reference documents, or SRDs, which are standardized structures for playing a game in the style of, say, Blades in the Dark or Apocalypse World. Basically what that means is the bare bones, the basic structure of how to play a game in this system is open for people to remix and build on, which is how you get games like Armour Astir. And it's really interesting to see where people take kind of that skeleton of the system reference document and fold in other stuff, because a major part of this loop is 2 components that I think aren't really seen in other TTRPGs, which, you know, there's the on the ground turn, like kind of the sortie, and then there's the conflict turn, and then there's downtime. And conflict and downtime are typically stuff that aren't centered in other games, and they're really featured in the loop in this, which I think is cool.
So to kind of give a layman's version of what an SRD and a game license is, think of it like a deck of cards, right? You have a deck of cards, they have numeric values. People then take that deck of cards that is standardized and has rules associated with it, which is, you know, there's a number of suits, there's a number of cards, and then they take that and build around it. So everybody knows a value of a 1 is a 1. And then somebody might make a game where, oh, actually the ace is worth 10. But you know what an ace is intrinsically, because you know the SRD of the 52 card deck. I just want to get that one in there because...
No, that's a really good example to explain this a little better.
It was explained to me like that one time, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Anyway, this is the Texas Hold'em of games, is what I'm saying.
Incredible. Mexis Hold'em. Yep. So that gives us this final product, which is the core premise is that you are a rebellious or revolutionary cause. That's the player party. Seeking freedom, reform, action, dismemberment of an authority that seeks to control you, right? So it is very much like if you take the bare bone skeleton of like the plot of Star Wars, and just say like, these are the rebels, this is the empire, right? And what it does is it funnels that core concept through sorties, which is like, that's going to be your most, like when you think of an RPG, like, oh, I want to roll this so I can attack this and do this, right?
Yeah, you're on the ground combats and things.
Then you have your conflict turn, which zooms way out, and you do things like tool around with the different factions that are at play, how they interact, what they want to do to get one over on each other, if they can get one over on each other. And then you move on to downtime, which is basically like your filler episodes, your character building, your homoerotic moments between crew members.
Beach episode.
Yeah, your beach episode. Brian, when are we getting a beach episode?
Technically, the first episode was a beach episode, if you count.
No. If you have to say technically, there were not enough volleyballs.
I haven't thought about oceans at all.
Is a swimsuit a mech?
No.
It lets you swim better.
No. Does it?
That's what
It augments your ability. You try and you swim naked and tell me how it goes.
That was how Jesus swam naked. I don't know what you're trying to
He
say.
walked on the water. I'm not a fucking idiot. Anyway, so you then go from downtime back around.
Yes.
To that sortie. And you just go through this loop and you get it keeps things in like a very, I don't want to say fast paced, but you're never bored because you're looking forward to this thing happened on a sortie. Let's address it in the conflict turn. And then the conflict turn informs the next, and so on and so on. Like, and you're trying to look ahead like, okay, so the downtime is when I'll really be able to, like, you know, sit my crew member down, turn the chair around, put my mech piloting jacket over my shoulder and say, let's rap about what you did on the last sortie.
Exactly.
Well, I love this because this loop creates space for stuff that is really compressed. And like, let's look at the big, you know, the 800-pound gorilla, Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons, the majority of your time, you are in what would be the sortie phase of this game. And then anything you want to do as far as factions and maintaining world conflict and forces outside of the players that are moving in the world, usually that is handled behind the scenes by the DM. And I will say in 5th edition, a shitload of stuff is offloaded onto the DM with like no support.
Yep.
Please look at any independent RPG and look at how much better support tools you get as a DM to keep you from getting burned out, to help you come up with stuff, to help you resolve things going on in the world. Like, it cannot be overstated.
To speak on that, what I think, and I think I want to say my favorite part of Armour Astir is the collaborative storytelling. It really heavily encourages that this isn't one of us telling you what's happening. We're having a conversation. Mm-hmm. Oh, you think that's a cool idea? I think it could be cooler if it had this. Let's do this thing. And we can kind of work it out together. And I can challenge the DM with ideas, and the DM can challenge me, and I can challenge another player to be like, I want you to have to address this and play this NPC. Hey, you make up an NPC. I think it's great.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'll just read this part just because it's like a really succinct thing. Generally, actions are resolved as such. 1, the player explains to the director what it is they want to do. Nico says, hey, I want to go attack this person. 2, the director decides what move is appropriate. Well, there's really only one way to attack most of the time in Armour Astir, and that is a move called Exchange Blows. So I say, well, it sounds like you need to exchange blows. 3, the player rolls 2d6 and adds the noted trait. Traits are stats, stats are traits. It's just books use verbs. We're out here. And
those are
verbs,
nouns.
I mean nouns.
Verbs, I mean nouns.
And as a note trait, so Nico has a 3 in Clash, so she rolls 2d6 plus 3. 4, the director determines and narrates the outcome. Play continues. Nico had a 3 modifier, but still somehow managed to roll a 5. So that means that I basically get to be really, really mean in that moment, and so on and so forth.
What I really love about Powered by the Apocalypse games is that there's kind of 3 outcomes you can get. You can get a failure, you can get a success, and you can get a mixed success. And statistically, most moves are going to come out with a mixed success. And basically what that means is, like, only on a failure do you completely fail to get what you were going after. Everything else is complications. And it gives the storyteller, you know, your director or your other players who are going to be responding to whatever you've done, so much more ammunition and material to work with in terms of what they might do next than just a straight up
pass fail.
The best game design advice that goes around, and I forget who initially said it, but like, you should only roll dice if the outcome is uncertain, failure is interesting and success is interesting. And this game system has a really good way of handling that.
I also genuinely just think that 2d6 is much more conducive to varied and interesting rolls than a d20. A d20 has just too many numbers. There's way too high of a chance that just nothing happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you've ever felt frustrated anytime you have to roll your dice in D&D, like I've definitely been in situations where it's like, okay, go ahead and roll that. And I'm sitting here like, well, either I succeed and I get what I need to know, or I fail and we just fucking hang out here for another 10 minutes. Like, if you've ever felt that, you're feeling D20 fatigue, I promise you.
There are many suffering from D20 fatigue, and Armour Astir is here to help. By applying 2d6 straight to the forehead, you too can be a mech pilot suffering from your dad dying.
Oh, shout outs to Alice's dead dad.
No, my dad's alive.
Shout out to Alice's character's dead dad.
Thank you.
Anyway.
But yeah, you roll the dice, you determine.
You roll the dice, you figure it out. Another thing that this game has that I have never seen before, and I don't think a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games have it, if any do, which is confidence and desperation.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really interesting. Comes in handy or dire way more than you would think. Basically, it's really, really simple. Confidence turns your rolled ones into sixes. So if you roll 2 1s, that actually means you rolled a 12, right? Because that's 2 6s.
Yeah, you go from snake eyes to a 12, which is that's a real moment at the table when you roll that and you're like, are you fucking kidding me? And then everybody goes, you were rolling with confidence. And you're like, ah! Like, that's a great moment.
It's fantastic. And then desperation is the opposite. Your 6s become 1.
So confidence is the Shar Aznabal. And desperation is the Amuro Ray.
Absolutely. Amuro Ray rolled with desperation when he shot Lala Singh. Anyway.
Also, she was an enemy combatant. She kind of deserved it.
And then the last thing on this just little part is traits. Like I said, traits are stats, stats are traits. Unlike D&D, unlike A World Without Number, you literally have 5 stats. That is it. Well, some people have a 6th stat. We'll talk about that later. But defy, sense, clash, talk, and know. We don't have perception. We don't have wisdom. We don't have charisma.
Well, there isn't the separation between abilities and skills, which it helps so much simplify things.
It really, really does. And so instead of having like a system where it's like you could be doing perception and charisma, or you could be doing like strength and dexterity or something like that. What you do is you basically build your character fiction first, and the stats kind of take up the back end and fill in the rest. So, if you have a character who's really good at fighting, they're going to have a good clash score, but that inherently means that you have a low talk score because your stats have to add up to a number. So yeah, that's kind of the basic groundwork. We don't super have to talk about hooks. Hooks are just like literally things that the game wants you to write into the world that are just your character's basic beliefs, right?
I do think it's worth talking about hooks and gravity, because I think that those are major distinguishing characteristics of this game. I do think, like, in terms of what makes this a cool Powered by the Apocalypse game, but also what makes it a really distinctive game on its own, is the elements that it adds to the Powered by the Apocalypse formula. And the hooks and gravity kind of remind me of Monster Hearts, which was a very socially focused Powered by the Apocalypse game, where it really makes you think about, like, what your character wants and how they interact with others in a way that a lot of other games don't.
So what's a hook and what's a gravity? Let's run down them.
Hooks are your character's belief about the world at large and about themselves and their relationship with it. Gravity is a very similar thing, but it is specifically about the character's belief in a relationship that they have. I have gravity with my robot girlfriend. I have a hook about romance. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I really like them because it pushes you. Hooks and gravity, well, gravity especially is a huge part of your downtime. And it helps enforce the cool play loop, because there's a lot of incentive to work on your gravity clocks with other pilots or maybe the crew of your ship, in Alice's character's case.
Yes.
Because then you get to take the gravity bonuses and things that you've worked on into the sortie, and then they materially help you. So, like, it pays off actually to spend time with other people, which is a revolutionary concept, but I do like how the game codifies that and gamifies it.
Yeah, the gamification of it, like, it rewards you for remembering what your character's driving factors are.
Yes.
And a lot of them, I'll say something I really like about them is they can come organically. Like there are some moves that cause you to start a new gravity clock because of actions that occur. And I really kind of like that of like, okay, yeah, my character cares about, their robot girlfriend. What are they doing to make that story progress? And then it's like, okay, you progress that story, we're rewarding you for it. You're getting bonuses for it. You're a better, well-built character for it.
And I think hooks are so interesting because it basically creates a game mechanic for the huge plot moments, like your mid-season cliffhangers and your season finales and stuff, because your hooks are your beliefs about the world, and your hooks can be in you loose or they can be in there deep. And so, like, for example, if one of your hooks is...
your dad dying?
No, but, like, if one of your hooks is, like, my father will never be proud of me or whatever. Like, if that is so significant to your character, that could be in deep, or if you've done enough in your adventuring and that's become loose, that's eventually something you can let go and rewrite. Or if that hook is in really deep and say somebody kills your dad, that hook gets crossed off and you advance as a character. Like, you take a level up for having a transcendent moment of, like, so not even character growth, but, like, some kind of really impactful character moment.
One other thing I want to touch on before we go to the playbooks is just the way HP works. We do not have HP in this game. What we have are called dangers.
Oh, yeah.
Simply put, dangers are kind of vagaries that kind of come up as relevant to the fiction. I have stabbed Nico's character. Nico is going to take the risk stabbed, right? Depending on the sort of relevance of the character, player characters automatically obviously have 3 slots for perils. Some NPCs will have different amounts of those depending on what the situation is.
Some guys you just have to point a gun at, and they get the danger gun pointed at me, and they fold like a bad hand of cards.
Right. Once you have the maximum amount of dangers you can have, you are defenseless, which means somebody can roll to basically take you out of the scene. This does not always mean death, but sometimes it does. So that's basically how it works. We do not have like I have 20 HP and I took 9 damage type thing. We have I am piloting a mech, but I still have the risks cornered and vulnerable. Even though those have nothing to do with damage to my mech, if I have one more thing happen to me, I could potentially be out of the scene. That is what I meant when I said earlier about like how the game is able to homogenize like the experience of piloting a mech into what you actually, your stance in the actual fiction and in the actual game, which again, and this is something that we talk about really briefly in the interview, I believe, which is just, it's extremely anime, right? Every time someone's mech gets hit in an anime, they are suddenly bleeding. It does not matter.
But I also these also cover social dangers. Like recently I was in a situation, let me tell you, my character has -2 talk. She sucks at talking. I was in a social conflict and I just kept taking danger after danger. I ended that social conflict at 3 dangers. And you get to kind of choose what your dangers are called, or the director can tell you what they're called. But basically I think I ended that game with cornered someone in a bathroom as a danger, and then one was risked something I can't afford to lose, and my last one was doubled down. It's so flexible that it transfers from combat to social situations, but I was just as in danger from doubled down as I would have been from impaled.
I hate the health tracking that happens in TTRPGs. All right, let's all sit down. Who can do healing? How much healing do you need? All right, do you want me to roll again?
On a scale from 1 to 29, how you feeling?
How's your character looking?
I also like the way it's in every RPG ever, it's you have 29 HP, but when you hit 0 HP, there's still 9 things that you do before it actually matters, right?
Yeah.
Versus since this is a whole different outlook on it, it makes a lot more sense for there to be a little bit more safeguards as far as do we think it's interesting for this PC to die? No, then maybe we just have them be in the infirmary until the end of the, you know what I mean? So yeah, we can talk about playbooks. We can either talk about the basic moves, which is the thing that I think really sets Powered by the Apocalypse games apart, or we can talk about the playbooks, which is just kind of another thing that plays into that general category.
I'm cool with whatever.
So, like I mentioned earlier, We do not have a roll me a perception check. We do not have a roll me a sneak check. We do not have the GM is rolling to see if the enemies spot you. In fact,
I check for traps.
In fact, one of the things I didn't mention earlier is that the GM doesn't really ever roll dice in this game. I, as the director, am basically there to just respond to what the players are doing, which is another thing that's really interesting, right? And that was what I was saying earlier is, you know, if you fail a roll, that is when I get to basically do whatever I want.
Yeah?
And all other times I am basically the code in the background showing you what's happening, moving things around, blah, 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 blah. So because of that, we do not have roll me a perception check and I will roll to see if the enemy spots you. We have weather the storm, which is basically, a lot of these are going to be kind of general catch-alls, right? Just think of what that means. When you weather the storm, you are doing something under pressure. You are literally walking through a rainstorm, right? It could just be that simple.
Well, I will say, to kind of get into it, how this game works is it's not you or the director saying like, okay, you're going to do that, do this. It's the player going, I want to do this thing, and I think this move applies. Or I want to do this thing, what move do you, the director, think applies to it? Because it's very much like, it's not you're just doing a thing. It's literally like, okay, my character would do this thing, or my Astir would do this thing. Which one applies to this? And then we just kind of go through list. So that's why I like these, because there's always one that will apply and sometimes multiple. And then you can kind of make the argument for what you want to happen.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. So like weather the storm when you want to do something safely under pressure. I want to cross this battlefield during active fire. I want to try and deal with this extremely tense diplomatic situation. I want to like I mentioned earlier, I want to try and sneak up to somebody.
I want to eat spicy
noodles. Those are all
noodles.
things that could be weather the storm.
And not puke into the bowl.
Sure. I mean, probably. We have read the room, which is basically just saying, hey, give me some fuel for like deciding what to do next, right? Reading the room has you rolling, and then based on your roll, you get access to a list of questions that you're allowed to ask me, and I just have to answer them A, as truthfully as possible, and B, within the realm of things that you could possibly know in that moment, right? So it's kind of up to me, but, you know, it's questions like, who has the upper hand here? How does this NPC really feel? How is somebody at risk? Where can I find this?
It's super helpful when you are in a situation and you are just stuck. Because, like,
if you don't know what to do, read the room.
Has this ever happened to you? Have you ever been in a dungeon room and there's a puzzle for third graders happening and you just can't fucking figure it out? And you've rolled your perception checks, you've used your trap sense, you've whatever, and you're just fucking stumped, and the DM is just looking at you like, can you please fucking figure this out? In a better game, like Armour Astir, you could roll to read the room and get a little bit more information. And maybe this is a great tool for a director to give you a hint. So, like, if you're watching your players wander around in a room, struggling with a puzzle for third graders, and they roll this and ask you even a question that seems irrelevant, like, where do my hooks pull me here? You can look at the sheets of the characters and go, okay, this one has a hook about loving money. And you can be like, you're really feeling this corner that seems to have the MacGuffin that you fucking need, you idiot, that you can't locate or something. Like, there's so many levers here for both the player to get a better handle on their situation and for the director to point things out and help, it's just super useful.
But also for the director to put things on the players that they have to deal with. You can fail or get a mixed success on reading the room. You can get incorrect information from the director.
Dispel uncertainties, I think.
And get a danger, and you have to deal with that shit. And I love that. I love that it's like, okay, my character is reading the room, but they read it wrong. They thought pushing somebody into a bathroom stall was a good idea, right, Nico?
Listen, we walked away from it. It worked.
So following Read the Room, we have a similar thing, but also quite different, and maybe even the opposite thing, which is Dispel Uncertainties. This is when you have a specific question that you are able to act on. Hey, does my character know this about the world? That's basically it. Help or Hinder is neat. This is basically just giving advantage if it passes, and if it doesn't pass, then I get to steeple my fingers and rope you into the consequences of the action you're trying to help with. Weave Magic is my favorite because it's so broad that it's kind of hard to use sometimes. When you weave magic to do something taxing with your power, roll plus channel. Channel is a trait that only people who pilot mechs get, right? That's the 6th one that I was mentioning earlier. It's so funny. It is basically just like,
do you want to do shit?
Do you want to do some shit? And if you can't do it, I may hurt you very, very badly. That's Weave Magic, baby. Almost all Powered by the Apocalypse games have a move that is just like, is there something that's not covered here that the setting may or may not elicit from you or your character? Then just roll the weird stat and do the thing or not. It's very good. And then we have our fighting stats, or our fighting moves, which is just exchange blows. You are, again, dealing each other dangers. This is what we were talking about earlier.
Yep, and that can be physical or talking, which I love.
You can roll exchange blows with talk. You roll exchange blows with talk instead of rolling, speech plus charisma or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's that. Strike decisively is almost the same thing. It is just what you do to actually kill or otherwise remove someone from the current fiction.
Fatality.
When they are defenseless, meaning they have all of the dangers they can have. Bite the Dust is the opposite. It is just the player doing that when they are defenseless and have fucked something up. So you have 3 dangers, you decided to try and fight still, and you failed. You're biting the dust.
Mm-hmm. And it's cool because it's not, like Brian said earlier, it's not necessarily death, which is a really cool idea space to be like, okay, what would be not death but would remove my player from a scene, which can sometimes open up like worse ideas, like what could be worse than this? Maybe your ex shows up. What could be worse than this? Maybe a friend who's an NPC sacrifices themselves and you can't bring yourself to keep fighting. Like the mechanical objective is to get you out of the scene. Where the story takes you is the cool open idea space of Bite the Dust.
Yes, exactly. So those are, I wanted to kind of go in grain about those because that is what we do in the game while you're doing the sortie turn. Those are the things you're doing instead of rolling strength plus dexterity or whatever the fuck, right? So that is what playing the game looks like is Alice says, I want to do this. And I say, well, you need to read the room. You need to dispel uncertainties, so on and so forth. That is how the game becomes more of a conversation than just kind of like I'm in this room now, here's what's happening. Oh, I solved the puzzle. I'm in this room now, this is what's happening.
Do we want to get into the playbooks?
I think we should get into the playbooks.
What's your job? What kind of job do you want?
Just quick background on how this is going to work before we kind of like get into the details. There are 2 different kinds of playbooks. The first one is Channeler. These are your mech pilots. So channelers get that plus channel. That is your magic quote unquote score and also kind of like your piloting score. And then instead of having that extra stat, the support playbooks specifically they get a thing called B-plot, which gives them a bunch of stuff. Y'all need to play this game and see how it really plays all together. But support characters basically get a bunch of different ways they can say, timeout, I am giving this person a bonus. Timeout, I actually have decided this NPC can't be here. Timeout, I want to do this thing that benefits the party next time. That is basically how the 2 class types work. So yeah. Did we want to just go through them all, or did we want to just talk about your characters?
Yeah, let's go through it. So the first 4 classes
are...
in the main core book, there's 8. In Armour Astir Encore, which is Briar Sovereign's like DLC pack, I think there are 4 or 5 more. And then there's like most indie games, there's like billions and trillions. If you join the Armour Astir Discord, which I highly recommend, it's very beneficial for your experience. Like nearly everyone who's a regular on there has put a new playbook together. There's like a gourmand, like space chef playbook. There's a bunch of crazy shit.
Hold on. Are you telling me
Nico, I told you about this a while ago. Yeah.
I forgot, but I'm killing my character. I'm throwing my character in the trash so that I can finally play the character that I wanted to play in Starfield in a game that's good.
Don't invoke Starfield in the same episode as something beautiful as Armour Astir. I failed that one. Continue.
Our first playbook is Arcanist. This is your wizard. This is your orb ponderer.
Ponder the orb.
Oh, we didn't talk about approaches, which we should probably take a quick moment to talk about here. This game has a sword triangle. If you've ever played like a top-down
Fire
strategy
Emblem.
game, like a Fire Emblem, you basically have 5, let's just call them 5 elements that you can choose from. They go in a circle, being better than the next one. So like, for example, the mundane element is better or has advantage over the arcane element and has disadvantage from the elemental element. So it's just that. That is basically what it is. And that is going to be like...
But that's a major situation where you end up rolling with confidence or desperation.
Yes, that is like the number one thing. If you are, if your standard element is mundane and you are going up against someone who is arcane, you will act with confidence against them in basically all contexts.
If you're a redneck fist fighting in a Waffle House and you come upon a wizard, you can beat his ass. But
you can beat his ass.
If a flash flood comes upon you, you're probably still gonna die.
But if you encounter a druid, yeah.
If you encounter a druid, you're fucking
You ever
dead.
at the Waffle House at 2 a.m. off Highway 79, and you're sitting there eating your hash browns, and a wizard and a druid walk in, and you know it's about to pop off.
You know who you can win against. So... the Arcanist is a channeler, so they get, in their gear, they get 1 Astir. We'll talk about tiers in just a bit, but 1 third tier Astir, which is like your standard. This is, I imagine, tier 3 objects are like your mobile suit sized things. So the Arcanist you basically, when you pick a playbook, you get to pick between 2 approaches, you get to pick some gear, you get to pick like your you get, I believe, what is it? Do you only start with your starting move?
Yeah.
I've never made a character in this game.
You've never made a character? I think you start just with the starting move. Oh, you also begin with an additional move. That's how it tends to be with the Astir.
You get your starting move and you get 1 other one.
Yeah.
And also an Astir. Kind of a big deal.
You get your mech. If you're playing a mech piloting class, you get to design your mech, and that's an important part of your character creation.
Yes. And then each playbook has a specific gravity trigger to review. Gravity clocks are like your... like boiled down viewpoint of your character's relationships. And so each playbook has a different way in which you are allowed to advance those things. So the Arcanist is when you declare your plan to solve a problem and it works, advance a gravity clock with someone who doubted.
The bitch you thought of gravity clocks. I don't normally love a vanilla wizard, but I've come into affection for them when they're actually, and I hate this phrase, but they're actually dark academia, and not in terms of like, ooh, candlelight and skulls on untouched copies of Greek plays I'm never going to read, but like actual, you have to have a certain number of years in your degree program to do the kind of fucked up shit that this person is able to do. Like, you have to know calculus to understand how this person is about to ruin your day. I do love that aspect.
You're not really a big fan of vanilla wizards, but what about kinky wizards?
Kinky wizards! I'm saying.
Kinky wizards.
Okay.
Brian, I believe that you you reached out to the Armour Astir Discord for character sheets for us to talk about on this episode, and you got an Arcanist.
I got an Arcanist, yes. This is a kind of a joke Arcanist.
Don't care. Love jokes.
Hey, all wizards are really jokes.
All wizards are jokes. Or ponder derogatory.
Wizards out here catching strays left and right today.
So Ellen from the AA, I'm not going to say AAA. That's from the
AAA.
From the AAA. So from the Armour Astir Discord, Ellen, we were basically just talking about like long-term projects, which are just like different little things you can do to like, I want to make this weapon, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so they said Arcanist with -2 clash and input channel for exchange blows. Input channel just makes it so that you can roll a move with a different stat. I wanted something for strike decisively, and since her mech was a stolen piece of an oracle machine, I was planning to strike decisively plus talk using these joke weapons at least once each. So basically what this person is saying is they built kind of a joke Arcanist that is trying to do physical damage with talk, which is something you can kind of do in this game because, as we were talking about before, all of your sort of risks are risks regardless of where they came from. So basically what she had done is she had built this character to tell people their futures so direly that they die.
You ever go and get a tarot reading and fucking die? They pull the death card and it's real.
Well, I was going to say the death card actually isn't that bad in tarot. It's when they start pulling towers. There's only supposed to be one tower in the deck. This wizard is just pulling towers on you.
Multiple towers coming out here.
Right. So what this person is basically saying is Arcanist with -2 clash is really not ideal because Arcanists are a mech class, which means you're going to be fighting and you don't want to have a bad clash score if you're someone who's fighting, right? Mm-hmm. To address that, they've done input channels so that they can roll to fight with a different stat. Obviously, in this moment, it's going to be talk. But Strike Decisively doesn't let you use input channel. So what they did instead is made these joke weapons. They're just like, hey, what if I did this? What if I did the Bard, like, Hades Whispers move so bad that their brain exploded?
You mean vicious mockery, but yes.
Bad Whispers. So yeah, that was our like little thank you to Ellen. That was our little Arcanist moment.
I love that. Because I mean, you're already a wizard. Why not do some Looney Tunes shit? And why not just talk so much shit? Why not rap battle your enemies? Many people are asking this.
Many people are asking why wizards don't rap battle more often.
Do we want to move on to the imposter?
We do want to move on to the imposter, and we have a local who has made an imposter before.
A local? I'm a local.
A local.
Yeah, so the imposter playbook, this is a character who has gotten the ability to pilot mechs by hook or by crook. I love the tagline on this, which is, through magic, medicine, or sheer force of will, you took control of your body and made it ideal. This is who you were meant to be, and they'll never take it away from you. So this is the trans playbook. No, I'm kidding, but like, it is actually touched on, and I love that in the text. It literally, there's like a special little disclaimer at the end of the book here, or at the end of the playbook, specifically for the imposter, because it is so much about body modification and changing yourself to be what you want to be. And that obviously has a trans angle, but it also has a kind of disability angle. So
totally. That's what I was going to say, is it is also very much about disability.
Yeah. I play a character in our game named Dr. Adelaide Weiss, Ada for short, and she is lethally immunocompromised. She spends most of her time in a sealed, sterile hard suit, or very rarely in her own sterile room because it keeps accidentally getting used as the brig. Due to her being immunocompromised, I think this might have been a little influenced by COVID, she could not interact with the world in the way that everyone else could, and I extrapolated that to piloting. And so to overcome that, she basically installed a neural tap in the back of her head, like in the Matrix. And so basically the core of her character is that, like, she's someone who's risking her life all the time because society doesn't have space for her, and she refuses to be excluded. And so she's going to carve that space out, even if it means every time she wants to pilot, she is sticking something past the brain-blood barrier in her own head and risking her life to get out there. Like, very often risks for her that I end up taking, and I end up taking a lot of them because the imposter is a class that thrives when you are fucking around.
Yep.
A lot of the risks I take for her are threats around, like, having a hard suit breach, or, you know, being threatened with lack of mobility, or being compressed, or things like that. And I mean, that's a lot around her disability of like, to what extent society does not have room for her, but also to what extent she's learned so much and made her space to fight back and to literally get in fights and maybe kill a fleet admiral last game. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of the imposter.
It was a fleet general, by the way, not an admiral. Different.
Okay.
Different titling.
God. Okay.
It's interesting with the imposter too, because like you know, friends of the table listeners will know that Figure and Bismuth was an imposter until recently, and their approach to imposter, Dre's approach to imposter, was more about what it means to be in a bizarre reanimated body that you kind of no longer recognize, right? And so, like, in the way that the mech genre is about bodies, this is a really clear, like, crystallization of that in a way that I think is really interesting.
But yeah, if we want to keep it moving, I mean, the imposter, obviously, I mean, the initial approach suggested for you is profane. You could also go elemental. A lot of the theming, your gear, and your moves are about doing things despite adversity and despite dangers, and then capitalizing on dangers. This is definitely, they point out in the playbook, like, this is your anime mecha genre move. You are taking moves that are about doing stupid shit and getting high risk and high reward situations. So
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, go from there to the paradigm.
We basically have our our paladin here.
Yeah.
This is like our holy warrior. I have a patron god. It's interesting because we have playbooks that are called the Paradigm. We have a playbook that's called the Witch, and those are very much paladin versus warlock to me.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing about the Paradigm is that they do not have hooks. They have tenets. And so instead of having, and I think that's super interesting, right? Because like it ends up kind of making an offhand commentary about organized religion, where it's like this character does not have the same access to their viewpoint on the world as everybody else. They have to mediate it through their patron.
Mm-hmm.
And so your tenets are basically just like, instead of you being like having a hook of like, oh, I don't trust other people because I've been betrayed too often, your tenet on that would be, my God says people are untrustworthy and must earn my respect, or something like that, right? So that is kind of like the big flavor thing that sets Paradigm apart from other classes, which I think is interesting. And there's some mechanical things that go down with like, if you fail to live up to a tenet, it could permanently reduce your ability to do magic, is one of the things that can happen with this. And so that is your starting move, is you have tenets instead of hooks. But they can do stuff like consecrate ground. When you attempt to imbue an area or building with your divine power and presence, roll plus channel. On a 10+, choose 2. On a 7 and 9, choose 1. Creatures opposed by your deity or faith cannot enter the consecrated area. Insane. You can just say no.
Capture the point. I have come to like a paladin. I do like a paladin, especially in terms of like thinking about the authority in this game. Like in our game, one of the pillars of authority has a religious bent to it, but like we don't have like the authority in our game isn't overall like a theocracy or anything. But I think there's such a rich ground for having a channeler who's a paradigm, who either serves a god king or serves a nation state that is synchronized with, they're synchronized with their faith. Because, like, in a struggle between authority and rebels, where does faith fit into that? And, like, to what extent does your god empower you? And to what extent, like, there's the concept of the paladin oathbreaker. Like, to what extent are you empowered by being betrayed by your god or your nation state in that way? So
Look, let's be honest. When you're out there fighting for the god emperor of Terra, destroying Xeno scum, and
40K
suddenly,
mentioned.
They start bombarding the planet you're on, and you're like, but I'm one of the good ones. Maybe you turn traitor. Maybe you turn heretic. It happens. Zinch is cool.
Everyone's saying this.
Everyone is saying this.
Oh, wow, yeah, I was talking mad shit about the witch, and then here she is.
Maho Shoujo, the playbook.
So we actually had a witch before, as all RPG players know, the tragedy of having to say goodbye to a player because they just can't make it work in their life. That happened to us with our witch. Like I said earlier, it is very much a warlock class. So instead of the paradigm having like a patron god, this motherfucker has like some kind of crazy entity that you've made an actual pact with, right?
Do you want a contract? Do you want to make a contract?
Where the paradigm has a special thing with hooks, the witch is going to have a special thing with a gravity clock instead, which is so interesting to me, right? The way that the paradigm playbook mediates organized religion as something that affects your viewpoint of the world versus the witch mechanizing a specific relationship with an entity beyond knowing. It's like internal versus external. It's super interesting. So they get a mech. They get a bunch of weird, crazy, evil abilities.
I like that their approach can be arcane or profane, because our witch straight up introduced demons to our setting and then left. And now we have a demon that is in a pitched battle with an AI hive consciousness, which is just a cool situation to have in your game.
He's just out here.
Can you imagine if QB from Madoka Magica was like, do you want a mech? I'd sign up immediately.
Yeah.
That's basically what's going on.
So what they have is they have a thing called influence. Basically, this is just like a currency that you have. I, as the director, can spend influence to have your patron do fucked up shit or cause fucked up shit or have you do fucked up shit that your player character may or may not want to do. That is basically it. I can say like, oh, I have one patron's or I have one influence point and you rolled 2 6s. That means I get another one and I can spend 2 to do X, right? That's basically it. It's like a big push and pull. one of the things you sign up for by playing a witch character, like I said, is occasionally having to do terrible things.
Just a little.
Just a little bit. Alice, the next playbook is Captain.
Captain, my captain.
Oh, Captain, my captain.
Captain. So something we didn't touch on with Armour Astir is your group has a carrier.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing in this and a thing that I loved. When I read that, I was like, love a carrier. Love a white base. Let's go, right? And so reading over the playbooks, I came across Captain and the schlock of, responsible for the crew and their mission. I'm in love.
This is your Bright Noah, correct?
Hey, I was going to make that. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. Sorry. I just wanted to make sure I had the reference.
You had it right. So this is your Bright Noah. This is your Masaki Aquino from High School Fleet. This is your person who's sitting at the bridge and calling shots. Why I love this playbook. So we've gotten into the B plot characters. These are the ones who don't have a mech, but they support the mech players and have their own thing going. So the captain, their whole shtick is they are in charge of the ship and the mission, and they can give out help to each other. The one that I love the most is they get this ability called In Command, where you can, if you are at the helm of your ship, have other players roll with plus crew, which, depending on how you build, and it's very easy when building a captain, can be a +3. Most bonuses for starting characters, I think it's capped at +2. So it's a very powerful move. The problem is you and the ship are one. That is kind of your Astir in this. If you take damage, it's the ship taking damage when you're at helm, right? And you can lose the carrier if you fuck around as the captain. The captain is just a cool playbook because it is about, all the support characters are about making sure that we leave that fight in one piece and putting it all together. And I just really love the abilities that come with it because, like, Battlestar Galactica lives rent-free in my head every day. And do I want to be Admiral Adama? 100%. Do I have all of those guns to fight the Cylons? I do not. But when you're launching your Vipers, you got to be in command. These are references for me only. Yeah, the captain is literally just the captain of the ship.
And how are you playing that with your wonderful character? I got to talk about Ada.
So you might have picked up if you've listened to any of our episodes. I like anime a little bit. Do I play a lot of role-playing characters that are just anime girls? Yeah. Do I love the trope of having a little anime girl as the captain of a warship? 100%. So I have the girl failure daughter of an authority figure as our captain, who is she's going through her rebellious phase, some might say. And it's really fun for me because this playbook really leans into the crew. Like for what you're doing is your crew is kind of your focus. And I really like that as my character's main focus besides, destroying the authority is how's my crew doing? What can I do to support my crew? And it's really fun to play that because the moves here really benefit you being no, let me help you out. Let me do something. You can, it really leans into being in a position where you can help others during sorties. You can give them fire support. You can give them tactical knowledge. You can help give them advantage. It's really about calling the shots.
There's a move called Human Resources. It's just really good.
Well, and one of the things that's been super cool about about Alice's character too is the downtime scene gives so much space for her to kind of learn how to be captain. We've had Alice make some really smart character choices as far as she's never done this before. She's gonna fuck up. She's gonna make bad calls. She's gonna piss her crew off. She's gonna, be a bad leader sometimes because she's 19 or something.
Yeah, basically a child skipped out of Naval Academy and is just trying her best to be a captain and learning on the fly. Maybe commanded a tugboat before this, right? Space has tugboats. Yeah. Right?
Sure.
Yeah, space tugs.
Yeah, space tugs. But it's really fun to just and the space. Again, we talk about a lot of in TTRPG is the possibility space. And you can be the most competent captain in the world with this playbook, or you can be a girl failure. And the fun
and it's
of this
really
game,
good.
And the fun of a Powered by the Apocalypse is the fun of failure. right? Like that's why systems like this are so fun, because we go back to the D&D and the D20 a lot. At some point, you have so many bonuses and things. You're rolling just on the off chance you fail. In this system, you can struggle. Even if you play to your best abilities, you're going to fail, and it can be fun to fail.
And also, one thing we didn't talk about at the top is failing is kind of the main way that you get experience.
Yes.
Yeah, we kind of glossed over that, but spotlight. When you roll under a 6, or I believe it's 6 or below, like if you really fail it, that's how you get a point to advance.
Which makes so much sense.
It does. It incentivizes you to take risks and fail, because best case scenario, you get what you're going for. Worst case scenario, you're closer to a level up. And that is what failure should be about. That's what gaining experience should be about. Not just your successes, but your failures. It's really cool.
Girl failure experience. The next playbook is Diplomat. This is your schmoozer. This is your schmoozy woozer.
This is your face.
I genuinely think, like, one of the things I was talking about this with somebody else the other day too. You read Diplomat and you think Mon Mothma, but I really think this is aimed more at a Bene Gesserit type fuckery.
I was going to say skullduggery.
I would also say, I mean, I hate to invoke it, but like this is like your Inara from Firefly. You know, this is someone who literally rides aboard a ship and maybe has their own goals, but also like they're the person you go to if everybody else just does guns for a living or whatever, and guns can't solve your problem. Like, it is so good to have a diplomat on your crew.
Yeah. So we have a diplomat, and she is very much, I mean, I said
the way that
earlier,
player drops into customer service voice so much it gives me so much
good.
life.
It's so good. He's doing that. He's also like, if I dare to change the scene, within 15 seconds flat, he's posting what outfit she's wearing for this specific situation. It's so good.
Fit is important in any espionage. Let's be honest. Like, that 90% of espionage is fit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like, you know, they are doing the things like gaining allies, making sure people get into places, making sure people get out of places.
Managing information networks, running agents on their own, doing their own side hustles sometimes, you know?
I do like under diplomacy tools. First of all, diplomacy's in scare quotes, which,
also,
yes.
tools is in scare quotes on some of these, which is...
Yeah.
They have diplomacy tools and diplomacy tools.
What I was going to point out is that shimmer-shaped clothing, which is clothing that can magically change color and design, is a diplomacy tool. And I love the fact that our player has literally just embraced that with just constantly, we are getting fit checks, we are getting...
Fit check.
Sometimes you're French in space. I don't know what to tell you.
It's so funny because, like, their skill set obviously is very closely focused on talking, but they have spy energy, and they have so many different spy tools and kind of spy moves in terms of just facilitating scenes. The diplomat, like when we are doing B-plot scenes, I think specifically about like our first arc, where there was a lot with our captain and our diplomat and unfortunately our mad scientist. There were a lot of fails, but the diplomat salvaged like so much stuff just using the broad toolkit. And I mean, overall, it was a success. You know, it was headed in that direction anyway. But like so many of the gaps and the leaps that had to be made to get us to a success were filled by the diplomat just sashaying around, just like solving problems.
Yeah, it's really interesting how that can work out.
It's me. I'm the problem. I'm the girl failure captain who knocked coffee onto somebody's lap.
Yeah.
Actually, no, that was not you. That was our next playbook, the Artificer.
Yeah, that was our Artificer. That was our brain in a jar.
Yeah. So the next playbook is Artificer. This is your engineer class. This is your Liron. My fiance plays our Artificer. Let me just call him over here. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'll call him out.
So, Artificer, like I said, engineer. This is your tinkerer. You're not your tailor, your soldier, or your spy.
Yeah, that's all the diplomat earlier.
Yeah. This playbook can be so broad, there's almost not much to say here, because the angle that our Artificer has taken is you can actually put your Artificer into a mech. They can actually have a channel score of up to +1 with like an item that you can get. And so like they have a support mech that does stuff like heal dangers or like grant advantage or things like that. But you can also have an Artificer who like just basically sits there and makes long-term projects go by faster and like just makes shit and like gives things new tags. And
Listen,
things like
there's
that,
a reason that this comes up over and over again in Splat books and Unearthed Arcana. Pretty much any game system, somebody wants to be a little fucked up guy who's inventing the gun. And if guns already exist, then they want to be a little fucked up guy who's inventing gun 2, gun but worse. Right?
Gun
like
but worse.
they
Yeah.
just somebody needs to be the person who is doing mad scientist shit or is doing like this is pushing the edges of technology shit and like Artificer, you can't lose.
Or the edges of magic.
Or the edges of logic and reason.
It happens. What is Albraxis building?
We don't fucking know. He's a brain in a jar.
I really feel like somebody should ask him what he's building in that workshop.
All right. Our last playbook.
Our final playbook.
The Scout. What can we say about the perfect Scout?
What can we say about God's perfect killing machine? Our Scout is kind of an exceptional case because for some reason that player just like is allergic to rolling bad die.
They are God's perfect killing machine.
Scout can basically go one of two ways. This can be a scout, a recon person that grants advantage and like different little buffs for scoping out a situation in advance, or they can be a giant killer, which is basically everyone in Attack on Titan. I will leave it up to you to guess which ours picked as God's perfect killing machine.
I straight up gave my character a robot girlfriend so that I would not be tempted by romance in a game, and then fucking other player rolls out. My power is my body is perfection, and I am in the same weight class as a mech, and I'm gonna go to the Space Olympics about it. And I simply said, why would you do this to me?
True.
Our scout is really exceptional, but like the skill set on the Scout playbook is so broad, like Brian said. Like you can be someone who is running around with the binoculars, like making shit happen and being a guerrilla fighter.
Right.
But with the Giant Slayer, like you really you become something exceptional. And I think it really does take a lot of thought when you're building your character for you to decide that concept of someone who is so exceptional that they decide they can take up a gun or a sword. I think we were just talking about this in the Price of Smiles episode about how ludicrous it is to stand there with a gun and shoot at a mech. Deciding that your character is going to be the one who can do that and win takes a specific type of character, and it is fantastic. Like, I love to see that executed.
For every Levi, there's 30 other scouts who are going to die with doing nothing. And you chose to be the Levi.
Yep.
No, but it's really cool because it can be, it can go two ways. I mean, it can go multiple ways. Like all of these playbooks, the reason you start with the world building is you start to decide what your carrier and your crew is going to be doing. One of the scout ones is like pathfinding, which deals with like long treks and gives you a lot of advantages for that. So like if you're doing like a ground-based sand crawler or something as a carrier, it can help with that. It's like all of these playbooks. You can make a character with them that is just unique to what world and what carrier and what crew you have.
It's really cool. I didn't realize that there was part of the scout equipment is just you can always have a knife.
Everybody has knife.
Do you not just have knife?
And then, like we touched on briefly, like there are a ton of custom and additional character classes that have been produced both by Briar Sovereign and by the community. And I think we did get an additional character sheet, Brian, if you wanted to touch on that real quick for one of those types of playbooks.
Yeah, so this was from Scampier, who's like a Scampier. I've never actually said it out loud. I've just read their name. But this is called The Guide. And one of the things I noticed right away about this class is it starts with a tier 4 Astir. We didn't talk about tiers yet. Suffice to say, your tier is your scale. A person is tier 1. A large car, like a truck, is tier 2. A mobile suit is tier 3. An Ava from Evangelion is tier 4. A carrier is tier 5. That is based, I mean, that's it. It's not super complicated. If you're someone who's tier 3 and you're attacking something that's tier 5, you don't get to do it, right? Like, you can't do any damage. Sorry. You know what I mean? You can't walk up to a big tank with a BB gun and expect to get anything done. What that translates to is this class starts with the biggest possible mech.
They start with Gunbuster and then they work their way down. No kidding.
This rips. This is
It's
so
super
cool.
It's super cool. So basically, from what I'm understanding is this class, the mech itself is something that is not entirely piloted, but sort of asked to do things.
Yeah, I like that one of their gears is ornamental reins. This huge ass mech is described as a stone-hewn shrine complex in the shape of a large Komodo dragon.
We got a shrine maiden! Let's go!
I don't feel like that's the vibe, but...
No. In my heart of hearts.
Kind of. So the idea is that the mech has a 4-step calamity clock. When your torpedo is overheating, your channel increases from +1 to +3. So basically, this is kind of like the imposter, which is the deeper shit you find yourself in, the better your stats become. Whenever you would fail a roll, tick up the calamity clock. If the torpedo is overheating, tick it up twice. When the calamity clock is filled, your torpedo rampages. The director can choose one of the following. The torpedo destroys the nearest structure. The torpedo is drawn into an ambush by the authority. The torpedo throws off any riders. So basically, you're just like at this thing's whimsy. So awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I don't know much about the playbook, but the guide, it's more about managing your Astir than it is about like what cool heroic shit you can do, which is an incredibly cool concept. It reminds me a little bit of the Paramore playbook from Monster of the Week. Which is that one's more about managing a relationship, but it's very much like you have a relationship with something which is really dangerous and monstrous. How are you handling that, and how are you turning that in the favor of your allies? And like, this is incredibly cool. I love that this whole thing is just constantly managing a bad situation.
I do want to call out something looking at this sheet that in the system that I love, and I want to call out this specific one, but they encourage you that when you launch your Astir, you say a line. Very Gundam-esque of like, Amuro Ray launching now. And their launch phrase is, there it is. I love this.
Yo, there's another move here that I want to call out called Unsagacious Technique. When the calamity clock fills, choose one. Your body changes to resemble the torpedo. When you weather the storm your torpedo creates, roll with advantage. Crazy.
Yeah.
You see through the eyes of the torpedo. When you gaze at the sky, you predict how the weather will turn in the next hour. Okay, sure. We are doing that.
Yeah, like the moves on the sheet we're looking at, the unused moves are grayed out, but like this is so much about being a sage who tends something which is very dangerous but looks like a temple.
Yes.
Like this is so cool. I love custom playbooks for giving you something really wild. Like this has never happened to me, but if you're someone who will be invited to a role-playing game and you just have no idea what kind of character to play, straight up just go look at playbooks that are out there, because people have such cool niche ideas for a character that you could be in this system. You will find inspiration. This is incredibly cool.
Scampier and Ellen, thank you so much for these. And if either of these characters die that I have known for only this episode, I will kill everyone in this room and then myself.
No, there's no one else in Alice's room, but in the pod, keep your character alive.
To finally get to the part of the game that is critically relevant to the podcast. Basically, your mechs in this game, when you go to create one, have like 3 big things that are mechanized, and everything else about them is kind of like whatever you want to happen with them in the fiction, right? The first one is going to be your core, and this determines your approach. This is mostly flavor, right? Except for when like approach becomes important. So we have alchemical, an alchemical core which uses magical substances and mechanisms. This is either mundane or arcane. You have crystalline, and like these are like, I imagine these things as being like what powers it, right? So crystalline can be arcane or profane. Natural can be divine or elemental. Ancient can be mundane or divine, and occult can be profane or elemental. Like with any game, you can play with these, but that's just kind of like the sort of layout that it gives you. So you have your core, and then you have your parts. These are actually the things that come into like mattering, right? So basically how it works is you have 4 power. You can disseminate this 4 power between parts and weapons. So say you start with 4 power and you want to take extra arms as a part, which gives your mech 4 arms, right? That leaves you with 3 power, which gives you a little bit less room to work with because there are some playbook moves and some mech-related moves that require that you have power to work with in order to use them, right? So that's kind of the strategy there. And I think that one of the things that's really cool about Armour Astir is like it's so simple that it lets you get really crazy with shit, right? I have an NPC whose mech is a giant sword that she pilots remotely, right? And all I have to do to make that work is just like, oh, well, that mech's weapon is itself. It just has a weapon that is itself that has these things going on.
That's great. That's great.
And then you have weapons and arms. So like these are things like Great Arm 3. These are or tier 3 Great Arm, right? So this is like your big ass mech sized halberd. You have your Force Repeater, which is like a big mech sized revolver, like the freaking Labors have in Pat Labor.
You have the Titan Bow, which is an English longbow for a mech.
Hell yeah, it is. What are we doing if not that?
Just a mech with a ripped ass forearm. One single ripped ass forearm for the pull string.
I think a lot about that tweet that's like, most archaeologists actually can't tell much about your gender when they dig up your bones, but they can tell whether or not you regularly used an English longbow, and that's a lot more important.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, you can choose up to 2 parts. You can have basically as many weapons on you as makes sense. If you have 4 arms, then you are probably going to carry around a little bit more in terms of weaponry. If you are a weird, creepy psychic mech, you might have weapons that just like float around or something. And so that really becomes a conversation between you and your director, which is another thing that is so cool because like a lot of people that in the Discord have talked about like, well, what's a good amount of weapons to have? And it's like, well, if you have 19 shotguns on you, sure, that's like technically possible, but your director is going to be like, well, you're trying to do this while you carry around 19 shotguns, so please act with disadvantage. You know what I mean? It can balance itself out, or your director can balance it out if they so choose.
That's why you always keep it at 18 shotguns maximum. The Baker's dozen of shotguns.
The Baker's dozen of shotguns, Armored Core pilots know about this. That is basically it as far as creating a mech. You'll just like do what comes to you. Powered by the Apocalypse games are fiction first. So you have your idea and you make the game fit that idea instead of the other way around.
You could choose to make a fucking GM, the most stock ass guy standing emoji mech ever created, or you can choose to do some weird hover tank magic bullshit, and both work. It's great. You
could make Escaflowne in this game. You could make Gunbuster in this game. You could make Killer Cage in this game. I'm just going to go through an example Astir. We'll probably talk about a couple. So this one is called the Goliath. It's tier 3. It has an ancient core. Its parts are stalwart greaves, so it lowers dangers from knockback or pushing. So like this guy is hard to knock over. This is what I mean, right? This person wanted to make a big chunky boy that was very bottom heavy and hard to get onto the ground, right? So they gave themselves a part that was that. They also gave themselves a part that is called Titanic Armor. This gives it plus ward. That is basically just saying, are you trying to give me a risk? No. And then you basically cash in that ward for the rest of the sortie, right? Then it has a move called Goliath Shield. Moves are just something that you can kind of discuss with your director. That is just like this is your, what is it called, Alice, when the Unicorn Gundam turns all
Psycho
sparkly?
mode!
Yeah, this is your Psycho mode. So this guy has a Goliath Shield, which gives it advantage when it tries to help in terms of protecting others. And then it has a big-ass battle axe. And it has a big-ass shield. It has a mounted blaze wand, which is, I'm thinking, is supposed to just be like a magical cannon. And then if you look on the bottom of the page, there's a sick illustration of this guy who is like the playbook sounds like. Looks like he would be very hard to knock over, and also kind of looks like if a temple stood up, which is fuck.
It has real Shadow of the Colossus and Legend of Zelda, vibes to it.
It definitely does.
Yeah, the art for all of the example Astirs is just like really fantastic. And now we have the page for the one that's on the cover, which I love. I love that it's called Advent. I love that it's featured on the cover. This is very much, if you sold toys of TTRPGs that are indie, this is the guy.
This is the guy.
I want a plushie of it.
Alice, do you want to talk about the Advent?
Yeah. So this example one is called the Advent. It is a tier 3 divine mech with an ancient core. So this is, there are a lot of mobile suits, but I've heard of a white mobile suit that's been going around blowing up people. So this is kind of how you can take like a regular run-of-the-mill mech and make it kind of unique. It has warding, adamantium plate, its special thing is Advent Legacy, so it always leads a sortie with advantage when piloting an Advent. So as long as you're piloting this while leading the sortie, you have advantage, which is pretty cool.
This is the Gundam. This is the Escaflowne of Gundams.
I love a mech with a sword.
I'm obsessed with the phrase, this is the Escaflowne of Gundams.
This one is actually my favorite out of the example mechs. So, Nico, do you want to talk about the Summoner?
That's ripped art. That art goes.
This art is just so good. Look at that fucking thing. And it has your digitigrade legs that you love so much.
So yeah, this is the Summoner. This is a tier 3 arcane with a crystalline core, Astir. I like that this is literally about a new guy just dropped.
Yeah, pretty much.
Familiar Sync Rituals is its main artifact, and its familiar matrix is Shard Familiars. It is summoning rocks. It is summoning familiars. And its whole thing is about blitzing you with them. Like, it is summoning rock guys, and it is fucking annihilating you with them. I love that. And I think Briar mentioned specifically that, like, familiars, like, if you were trying to translate this game to just sci-fi and stuff.
Funnels.
You could be talking about funnels, yeah.
Yeah.
Funnels. It's Psychomu. It's funnels.
If you want to do a magical version, maybe you summon a bunch of crystals, and then you do some fucked up energy healing on people. By which I mean you hit them with rocks.
What if the new Gundam just shot out rocks instead of those cool-ass funnels the new Gundam has? That'd be so cool.
What if a Gundam just threw a rock at you? Like, what would you do?
What if the Quebly showed up, hands on hips, and suddenly gemstones righteously comes out?
Righteously.
But yeah, this one, I mean, the art is fantastic. There's like a chromatic aberration and screen tone effect on it, and it does have the digitigrade legs, and I love it. It's so good.
It's really, really good. So there's a bunch of others that y'all should check out on this because they are super sick. The art is dope as hell. Mm-hmm. One of these is straight up just a Zagok, which I'm not complaining about at all.
I love the Omen, to call out another one. They're like, these are really common. Like, they're really, they're pretty standard, and they make up the bulk of forces. They look like carved marble statues. I love the idea that this is stock.
Yeah.
Like, fantastic setting, fantastic art, fantastic example, Astirs. Now, with all that said, and in lieu of our usual mech ratings, Brian, you did some journalism. You did an interview.
For some reason, Briar Sovereign agreed to grace me with their presence for over half an hour while I talked to them about a bunch of stuff. You want to hear that? Let's go!
Yeah, I think you just dove right in, so let's get into it.
I'm wondering if we can get like a quick timeline, because I know Advent came out, like a couple years ago?
Yes, technically. It has been a long running project of mine.
Yeah. I mean, I remember people talking about like the first, I don't know if you'd call it like the first edition, but like this game used to have like ammo and stuff, right? So it's like transformed a lot.
Uh-huh. So a long time ago, when I started making this game originally, I used OneNote for all my notes, and a lot of the older stuff is still in there because they never deleted it. Mm-hmm. And those date back to like early 2017. That's a good like 6, almost 7 years ago at this point. Mm-hmm. That all of those early notes go back from. But yeah, I think I actually technically launched it 1.0 like quote box, like 2 years ago now ish, maybe 1. That might have been this year. My conception of time is completely off these days.
I think that's one of the post-COVID society symptoms is like nobody knows what time is anymore.
Yeah, no, it's completely gone.
So then it kind of took off immediately then. If it was only like about 2 or 3 years ago, at least for a while. I don't know if you still are, but you were on the front page of Itch's like RPG section.
Still there on top rated, thankfully. Hopefully that doesn't change anytime soon.
Yes. I believe you've referred to it as a matter of life and death before.
Yes, deeply important.
I also kind of was wondering a little bit about like how you kind of came to this sort of project, because I know you work on other stuff too, like other games. You have other stuff going on.
Yeah. I mean, how I came to stuff, I guess I would have been just like, I was kind of always interested in tabletop games, but I never really got a chance to play any of them until I got to like university. So I kind of got to university, had a pretty immediate collision with like Pathfinder, with Deadlands, a lot of that kind of thing.
You weren't a big D&D person?
No, never got a chance to. And I dabbled with like a little bit of tabletop design while I was at university, but that was mostly sci-fi stuff.
Sure.
I think kind of like the roots of Armour Astir were definitely in sort of seeing how people hacked D&D for a lot of things that I didn't feel really like worked for it.
Yeah.
Which is why like the very earliest Armour Astir stuff I have still is all very D&D and like theming. The war stuff was still there, but like the original class lineup was just the D&D one.
That's so I can't fathom that kind of, because I've only had the latest iteration in front of me. That's interesting.
Yeah, no, I think this was like I saw Dungeon World and I was like, well, this could be bigger.
Did it always have mechs?
Yes, absolutely. And the idea of like the split thing where like some playbooks have them, some playbooks don't was always there. It's just that originally that was like, oh yeah, you could be a fighter still.
I mean, and that's still kind of there with like the scout.
Definitely, yeah.
What are some like, I mean, so Powered by the Apocalypse as kind of a skeleton, and like this is kind of a more, you've built a lot on top of that kind of makes it unique on its own, but like it operates so heavily within like a genre space. So I was kind of wondering what are some of the foundational like mech media that kind of inspired the way this took shape. I know you mentioned that Escaflowne, which seems so obvious, came in actually super late as an inspiration. So I was kind of curious about that process.
Yeah, the Escaflowne one is always a weird one for me, because if anything, Escaflowne just kind of reinforced what I had at that point. It's hard to see what got me interested in mechs originally, because I kind of always thought mechs were cool. I'm not immune to wow, cool robot. But like sitting down with the Great Gundam Project and getting interested in Gundam is definitely like what solidified it in the way that ends up in Armour Astir. As for PBTA, definitely Friends of the Table, hitting the like transition in counterweight over to Sprawl.
Yeah, that's interesting. That timeline actually does work out. I was kind of thinking this might have started before that, but that makes sense.
No, I think I hit the Sprawl, and then after that season, I go back to Seasons of Hieron. I remember at the time thinking PBTA was really stupid. I was like, oh, what? You fail a roll and things get worse? What? How times have changed.
It seems like you've just sort of cobbled together like a pretty dynamic like education on how to put these together. Did you receive any formal training on game design or like execution or anything like that?
I mean, I did game design at university. That is my degree, but we didn't really cover any of the kind of tabletop stuff. It was all level design, that kind of thing. But I'd say most of what I know about tabletop design is through just engaging with books, engaging through people playing games and like podcasts like Friends of the Table. I think there is a way to get a pretty solid education just through doing that.
That is true. I think tabletops are uniquely suited to kind of teaching you like how they work. If it were a video game, you couldn't just sit there and look at the code and kind of understand what was going on, versus that is kind of what you're doing when you look at like the Armour Astir PDF.
Absolutely. And I think nothing really like teaches you the friction points of a game better than hearing people play it, whether that's like your own game that you're getting feedback on, or if it's, you know, something existing where you can start to see the gaps and the flaws in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know like the thing that got me into tabletops was actually the Adventure Zone, which is kind of ironic because I really don't like D&D.
Yeah, same.
Even when they kind of try to do interesting different stuff with it, I think it kind of elicits a very specific kind of storytelling that I don't really jive with, versus, you know, Powered by the Apocalypse and Armour Astir specifically.
Yeah. It's bizarre to me that they stick to D&D so much, because I have listened to that first season. I enjoyed it. They are doing the least amount of playing D&D anybody has ever done while playing D&D.
Yeah, it is very not D&D in while being that system in a really weird way. So I know you mentioned getting into Pathfinder. Are there any like other tabletops you would say like are your favorites, or like things that you knew right away you were going to implement in Armour Astir that stayed through the whole kind of process of making it what it is now?
Ooh, I'd say, so weirdly enough, the danger system, the risks and the perils, that comes basically almost directly out of, again, counterweight when they were playing Technoir. I love the way Technoir works, where it has the little adjectives that goes straight into risks and things like that. It's also slightly inspired by, I can't remember if it's first or second edition Exalted, has a similar mechanic where you kind of have to knock people down to the point that you can actually do a finishing blow, and that kind of goes straight into dangers too. The
tag, like adjective verb systems that those games have seemed so off-putting to me for so long. I think Armour Astir might ironically be my gateway into that kind of system, but that makes so much sense to see that kind of lineage and like Armour Astir in itself is kind of an exceptional subject of study, at least in my opinion. because of how it puts extensive concepts like, the firebrand system basically being suborned into it as the conflict turned.
Yeah.
I'm so curious, like, what the process of coming to that loop, doing something very, very intimate like a sortie, and then kind of zooming out and seeing like a larger board, and just kind of wondering, like, how does that sort of formulate, and how did you get it to stick so well together?
So for me, it was very much a twofold thing. I'm a loop fan, because whenever I play a game that doesn't have that kind of structure, I find myself always struggling to like prep. I'm actually running Pathfinder 2e right now, and just like not having this kind of structure to prep for drives me absolutely mad.
Yeah.
Again, like, seeing other games with similar systems be played and seeing what kind of friction people had with them, right? Seeing faction systems that just get offloaded to GMs because everyone else isn't particularly interested in them.
Yeah.
And then it was also the slightly, much more selfish thing of knowing, like, hey, I know friends at the table is going to be playing my game at some point. I need to build a faction system that they're going to want to play and put in the podcast that is interesting.
Yeah.
And I think I dove right to Firebrands for that, because I knew I wanted this to be scene-based, right? Not just exchanging a bunch of moves. I wanted something that felt different to the main sorties.
Right.
And I've always liked Firebrands games, and I've never gotten to play one, so I put one in my game instead.
It's interesting to hear that it was kind of backwards engineered. I wouldn't say specifically for Friends at the Table, but it's interesting that Friends at the Table kind of informed the overall structure of like what kind of a game would make good radio.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely wanted a faction system where players would still be interested in what was going on outside of their characters.
Kind of another thing that it sort of also has like as an asset is there's like enough room for heavy sci-fi, and there's also enough room for sort of straight up fantasy. Do you have any like kind of any sort of stories about like how it came together to walk that genre line? Because it can get so weird.
I'd say kind of from the beginning, it was always my intent, at least a little, that Armour Astir was kind of treading that line, because I knew I didn't want to make a setting for it and kind of, point that at people. And I know people are always going to have their own interpretation of how magic is this, how technological is this. And like even coming from Mobile Suit Gundam, which is a very much a sci-fi show, there is like magic in there, right? There is spirituality, there is shit happening in there that is not necessarily just sci-fi.
Yeah, they have space wizards in Gundam.
They do. And again, I'm coming at that from the collision of also like originally this game was just D&D, but with robots.
Another thing that I thought was kind of special about this too was that it thematizes the mech and the pilot into kind of one being. And so like, we abstract things like hit points or like damage out to, if you take the risk crippled, it could theoretically, divorced from context, it could mean that your Astir was damaged. It could also mean that your character was damaged, and there's no like difference really mechanically. Did that kind of come out of the primordial chaos of creation, or like was that, because that is very specifically a mech genre thing to me.
I mean, I'd extend it out even beyond mechs too. I think it's kind of an important thing in any fiction that is about people in control of things, right?
Sure, yeah.
I think, you can put the same comparison onto basically any other, like, a tank crew or someone flying a jet or something like that.
Like Star Trek, somebody's screen has to explode in their face when the ship gets hit.
Yeah, but also, like, the attitude of the person at that screen is equally as important to what is happening in the scene, I think. And that's kind of how I've always viewed it. Very much influenced by like the back and forth of anime fights, right?
I was wondering a little bit about like your own creative process. Like I know you work on other stuff, like other games. What are some of those, and what has sort of the evolution and success of Armour Astir kind of taught you about your process? Like things that you think have worked from the start and things that you are maybe changing around for new releases down the road.
Oh God, what else am I working on? A half dozen things, honestly, at this point. I'm very much gets a little spark of inspiration, does like a couple hours work on a thing and then doesn't touch it for a long time. I guess most prominently recently, I've been working on Red West, which is my little heart hack about being like weird amusement park actor cowboys on Mars in the future. It's an odd setting. I'll give myself that one. It is like there was like a amusement park / resort like cowboy themed thing on Mars, and it's like decades later and you are like the descendants of people who worked there. It's fun, it's goofy. I need to work more on that. I have Case and Soul, which is my little Forged in the Dark mech game that I am doing a little bit more work on recently. I've been poking around with.
I didn't even know about that one.
Ooh, Case and Soul's fun. You should look into it. It is in a way very much my response to Beam Saber, I think.
Right.
I've been playing a bunch of Cyberpunk Red recently, which is a system I like but desperately want to fix all the time, so I started working on that. God knows when that's going to be finished. What else? I have 2 other Cyberpunk games I'm also working on. One of which I'm working on.
I think you would be kind of uniquely suited to be doing a cyberpunk thing because of the way that your games kind of draw hegemony. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a second cyberpunk project I'm working on with my partner. I have a third other Forged in the Dark cyberpunk game I'm working on that I started ages ago and shelved until very recently. I think that's the bulk of them right now. I feel like there's maybe another half dozen other like small abandoned things that I don't touch.
Right, and they'll come up and pop down as time goes on, I'm sure.
Gosh, probably. In terms of like what releasing Armour Astir and that kind of structure has taught me, probably that I want to do less early releases and make a bigger deal out of them. I have a habit of like finishing something in quote marks, getting like a first draft ready and just dropping it, and that's probably not like the smartest way to release things, honestly.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. One of the things too about like polish and kind of being an online presence that I've learned doing this show is like, on one hand, yeah, people expect a certain amount of like being put together when you decide to put something out there. On the other hand, like, you don't really owe anybody anything, you know?
Yeah, I've got to the point now where I have like terminal layout brain where I need to have something very presentable before I can put it in front of people too.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, I think I have like the general gist of the universe of this, but like who is the person you would credit? Like I know that the cover art and a lot of the actual Astir art in the PDF are by the same person.
I mean the stuff in the book is by various people. It's a big ass list. I actually went out of my way to work with a lot of different artists. At least on Armour Astir.
Yeah, I know that in like the sample Astir section there is a bunch of different styles, but like I know that the cover and like some of the background images seem to be by the same person. I could actually be wrong about that, but
oh yeah, Zach did a whole bunch.
Yeah.
More art coming in from Zach for the last finished version also.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, because that was our main focus on the show is talking about the robots themselves, this is going to be kind of a weird episode because like there isn't. We have to kind of talk about the possibility space versus like something somebody has actually put together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was kind of one of my bigger things was like, what are some of your favorite things you can do? Like what are conceptual combinations? What are some of your favorite things you've seen in the Discord of people like absolutely power gaming? I know there's a couple people in there who are doing wild stuff.
I'd say, so I see a lot of stuff in there and it's hard to like remember specifics a lot of time, but generally speaking, I feel like whenever I see someone playing a witch, they always have the wildest shit happening with their patron. People really like take that one and run with it.
Yeah, that's a big one. Is there like a 1-2, like, oh, if you take this move and this move, that's power gaming, baby. Do you have like a favorite one of those?
My favorite one of those is probably from the Encore playbooks, and it's what someone on Friends of the Table is doing right now, where you can take one move that has you always rolling 3d6. You're like flipping back between disadvantage and advantage.
Oh, okay, that's the Wither, is that correct?
Depending on like certain successes, yes.
Yeah.
And there is another move in that playbook where if you ever roll 3 6s, you die instantly. So
Yes.
just kind of taking the biggest risk possible with every single dice roll. I think that's very fun. I'm glad that it's getting demoed.
So yeah, I mean, that was kind of all I had like written down, but I don't know if there's anything else you like have to say about sort of the design or like your kind of journey getting here, or even anything that you want to plug.
Ooh, well, if I'm plugging things, I will always take the opportunity to plug my partner Frankie's PBTA game, Tendencies, Salt and Glamour.
I've heard of this, yeah.
It's kind of a, Hunter x Hunter kind of inspired thing. It's maybe my favorite game to play. It is what got me like back into the hobby in a big way a few years ago. In terms of other like Armour Astir design stuff I could mention, like kind of going back to the previous question about, kind of busted combos. I think generally speaking, my approach to playbooks, at least on Armour Astir, is like maybe like a little more generally strong than a lot of other PBTA playbooks are. And that's because I think it is, at least in this instance, it is fun to make people feel like they are strong. So you as a GM can kind of throw more stuff at them. Like one of my guiding principles in Armour Astir for GMs is you can't pull your punches unless you throw them first. I think it's fun to be able to throw more stuff at people than have to put things in front of them and be like, oh, whoops, this was too much.
I only have like really one other thing I wanted to ask, which is just something that we ask each other at the beginning of the show, which is, what are some of your favorite mechs and why?
Oh, okay. Easy question. Let's hit my two favorite mechs because they are complete opposites of the mecha fiction scale in a lot of ways. Favorite mech A, Scope Dog from Armor Trooper Votoms. Love that little green guy. Just the crappiest little tiny awful mech that you probably never want to be in ever in your life. Would probably explode if it drove over a stone that was too big.
Oh, this guy's janky.
Obsessed with the Scope Dog. Love them. My other favorite, complete opposite side of the size scale, the sort of power level scale, basically everything. The Gunbuster from Gunbuster.
Oh, yeah.
I adore Gunbuster. That is a perfect show to me. It's the only Gainax thing I can truly say I like.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, we that was like kind of one of our first episodes, and I think we're so much better for it because it really kind of invented the whole universe in a lot of ways, which is interesting. Yeah, I think I agree with them being kind of on the opposites there. And I also think that Gunbuster would be the funniest possible Armour Astir sheet because it just has every weapon imaginable.
Just about, yeah. Yeah, it always takes me great pleasure whenever a new image comparing like mech scale sizes goes around that I get to be like, oh, okay, that's my two favorite ones. It's the biggest one on the thing, and then there's one so small you can't even see it down at the bottom.
Yeah, it could fit the Scope Dog in its hand.
Just about, yeah. That's like, oh, you see that pixel down there? Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, thank you so much for kind of sitting down with me. I am fully enlightened by this conversation.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And I'll be looking forward to your other projects.
Hell yeah. Yeah, me too.
Wow, that was just so great of them to give you that time, and it was a really cool insight into the game design behind this. And I really love that they took the time to sit down with you. We really learned a lot from that. What do you think, Nico?
It explained a lot, I learned a lot, and I really liked the mech picks. So, as a reminder, all of Briar Sovereign's stuff can be found on itch.io at weregazelle. It is weregazelle.itch.io.
It turns out if you send an email and call yourself a podcaster, like, magical things can happen.
Hey, Brian, I hate to tell you, you're a podcaster.
Well,
people are going to look back and say the Briar Sovereign interview is when we peaked.
All right.
We were going to take one final downtime scene for ourselves, and when we return, there will be a game.
Hey guys, Alice here. So, On the Shoulders of Giants is a brand new podcast. We're still getting ourselves started. So, if you like what you're hearing and kind of want to hear more of it, maybe leave a 5-star review on your podcasting app of choice, especially if you're on Apple, because that would really help us out. And if you know anybody who might like mechs, point them in our direction. We'd love to hear from them, and, maybe they'll like what we're giving out there. Again, if you like us, leave us a note, send us a message, leave us a review. Just, interact with us. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, let's go back to the episode.
We really deepened some of our hooks during that last break, didn't we?
We really deepened some of our hooks.
Sorry, during that last downtime scene.
Deepened our hooks. Alice and I advanced our gravity clock, but it wasn't good.
Yeah, we'll talk about that off mic.
Let us play a game.
A game.
Now, I know what you might be thinking, listener. They're covering a game. Are they going to play the game? No.
Thank God. I got really afraid for a second. You were going to be like, all right, start rolling. And I'm like, oh.
No, we do not have to do
Wait,
that.
I'm ready. Okay.
This game is called Armour Astir Ad Lib.
Oh, no.
We are going to collaboratively cook up a character using the world-renowned cultural icon Mad Libs. And when we have a completed character at the end, the only way to determine a winner that I could think of was for you to answer me honestly if your character could take this character in a fight.
Okay.
So, I am just going to alternate between the two of you while I ask you for things to fill in this character sheet, and then we'll go over what it looks like at the end, and you will tell me if you think you could take them in a fight or not.
Very excited for this, honestly.
Okay. I'm not going to tell you what these are for until we...
just adjective, verbs, nouns. Yeah. You know how it goes.
So, Nico, I need an adverb.
Coolly.
Coolly?
Yes.
Love it. Okay. Alice, I need a proper noun, like place, like a geographical place.
Oh God. Does it have to, can it be not real? Does it have to be not real? Does it have to be real?
It could be anything you want. It could be anything.
Anything?
Anything. Anything is possible.
Anything. Oh God.
Chicago.
Oh God.
They probably did the opposite of helping.
Oh fuck.
What's the first city you think of when I ask you to think of a city?
The capital.
Okay. Nico, what's the last thing you ate? I unfortunately already know this.
That would be Chipotle lime and salt tortilla chips. And you have to type out the whole thing.
Okay.
No guac, because I finished the last few. When I finished the last few handfuls, no guac, I was out.
Alice, name an animal.
Aardvark.
Oh my God, this is amazing already.
AA. Aardvark.
All right, I need an adjective, Nico.
Brusque.
The fuck is that?
I'm just coming out with words Alice has never heard of today.
Alice, I need an article of clothing.
A single, right?
Yeah.
Does this podcast need to be like...
We're already rated E.
E for everyone?
Yeah.
I think it's got to be a one-piece dress.
Nico, I need a facial feature.
Oh, you know we're here for the nose. My favorite facial feature.
Alice, I need an emotion.
An emotion?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, remember when you were 14?
Haven't had one of those in years. Sorrow.
Okay.
I was 14
and
once.
Nico, I need a color.
Purple.
And Alice, I need an adjective.
Kawaii.
Amazing. Nico, a temperament or like another emotion also might work.
A temperament. I think it must be stoic.
Perfect.
I think something needs to be both stoic and kawaii.
This is insane. This.
I don't know what we're doing here, but all right. Possibility space.
Alice, I need a year. Any year.
Any year?
Yeah.
Oh, it's literally 1984.
1984. Nico, always or never?
These are getting...
Always.
These are escalating. This is like, there's a line cook, but you can't see what he's cooking, and he's just asking you, like, what kind of sauce you want. And then the next thing he asks is like, what was the last thing your mother told you? It's like, what are you making back there?
Alice, name it. Not name. What? I need like a family member, like mom, dad, cousin, aunt.
Stepsister.
No, of course. Of course.
Sorry. I know who I am.
This is exactly like the personality test in Fallout New Vegas where they assign your stats. Brian's actually going to give us stat blocks at the end of this.
We're going to fight this in our next game.
Nico, I need like an event, like a big like prom or marriage.
Oh, you know it's got to be the wedding.
Alice, I need a military rank.
A military rank?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, lieutenant. Not lieutenant. You spell it the exact same way.
Okay.
But you pronounce it lieutenant.
I have to type lieutenant so that I remember.
Thank you.
To pronounce it right.
The Canadian rank of lieutenant, to be clear.
Please make sure to specify the Canadian rank of lieutenant.
Nico, I need a verb.
Bouncing.
Her boobs bounced.
Gynax bounce. Spotted.
I need a different verb, Alice.
Fuck.
Fuck.
That's it. An answer. Fuck.
Okay. I need a third verb that is not the other two, Nico.
Man, all I have in my head is bouncing and fuck. A third verb.
This is terrible. I don't even know what's coming out of this, but I'm already...
Smoking.
Ooh.
The actual thing I could think of is the fact that there's a verb for the act of going to McDonald's, but it's only Japanese, and I didn't want to weeb that hard.
Look.
I need a noun, Alice.
A noun?
Mm-hmm.
Shrine Maiden. Nico says, I ain't going to weeb. Alice says, I'm going weeb enough.
There's a dial in Alice's mech and in mine, and I'm always too afraid to lift the safety cap off of it.
We are in the Gunbuster together, and we are fighting over this.
Your times are not aligned.
Our times are not aligned.
No, we're not.
Personal belonging, Nico.
AirPods.
Okay.
I don't know why this is ending me, and I don't even... Just these series of words together is sending me into actual orbit.
Alice, a number between 1 through 8. We're about to get into a bunch of numbers here.
Oh boy, stats.
4.
All right, that actually simplifies things a lot.
I'm very concerned with what like Brian's cooking back in that kitchen. Like,
Brian's the line cook.
I know I'm gonna love it. Brian has never cooked anything that I haven't loved, so
Nico, a number between 1 and 3.
3.
3. Another number between 1 and 3, Alice.
2.
And another one, Nico.
3 again.
Motherfucker, we could have done 3, 2, 1. And
I knew what you wanted. Our time is not aligned.
I know this. We're doing this kind of collaborative at this point, but I still hate you.
One more. Whoever didn't go last, Nico or Alice?
Alice, because I did the turnabout.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, another number?
Yeah, between 0 and 3.
2. Wait, 0 was an option?
Yeah.
2.
Okay.
I'm trying to like flex like a peacock right now to show you I mean it, Nico. You're staring at the camera.
This is foul. Okay. Because we did not happen to select a playbook that uses a mech, we are actually done with the ad-lib portion.
Wait, what?
Okay, are you ready for the reveal of this character?
Oh shit, number 1 through 8. God damn it.
Wait, 4 wasn't a mech one? Oh shit, I guess you could have given them any numbers. I was just going in order.
Yeah. I did not go in order specifically to help randomize it a little bit.
Brian, I think you got to introduce us to the guy we just made up. New guy just dropped.
New guy just dropped. This person's name is Cooley the Capital.
Oh, let's go.
Damn it, Alice, we could have had Cooley Chicago.
Their carrier name, because they don't have a mech, is Chipotle Lime and Salt Tortilla Chips Aardvark.
Good.
The
good
branding,
carrier name.
Carriers are expensive. The brand deal you got to make.
They're always out of guac.
Their appearance is they are brusque. They wear a one-piece dress. They have a sorrowful nose, purple eyes, kawaii lips, and a stoic stance.
Kawaii lip.
Their backstory is that Cooley was born in 1984 to stoic parents. They have always wanted to fight the authority because their stepsister died in a wedding caused by a famous lieutenant who loved to bounce at the cost of civilian life.
Truly.
They lost their lives at the wedding.
That damn lieutenant and his love of bounce. He's got the moon shoes. He crushed him with the moon shoes. No.
They decided to learn how to fuck, but found that too was caught up in the conflict as their boss fucked in front of their eyes.
My stepsister died at her wedding. I'm gonna learn how to fuck to get over this trauma. But then,
seeking a shrine maiden, they had no choice but to pick up their AirPods as a weapon against the authority.
AirPods?
You know what sucks? They're really good at fighting, but they are always missing one of their weapons. It's a serious problem.
They also can't hear their teammates, which is a huge problem. They are a captain in their playbook. So I was actually just going to let y'all pick like what their gear and their quarters bonus was.
Oh my god, let me look at the captain playbook. Okay. I'm glad Fully Cooley from the Capitol is here now.
Cooley the Capital is kind of a sick name, I can't lie.
Okay, the ornate gear is a duelist blade.
Okay.
It was their sister's sword that they wore on their wedding day.
That's beautiful. Okay.
What are you doing, stepsis? Oh, dying?
To the man who loves to bounce. The man who loves to bounce. Do, 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 do.
I think one of their crew bonuses has to be Marine Infantry. That was everyone who was in the bridal party when the wedding happened. And they all decided to join the fight. So they are all, the captain is wearing the one-piece dress. They are all still in the bridal dresses.
Mm-hmm. Their stats are Clash 3. Now, I had to take a liberty here, right? Because I wanted to make you all guess at the numbers. So I had to make the final stat offload the others so that they all added up to 0, which is in the rules, okay?
Okay.
So be aware of that. Y'all picked high-ass numbers.
I picked 3 twice.
Clash 3, Defy 2, Sense 3, No 2, Talk -10. Anyway. Because
they're so stoic. They got the AirPods in and they're too stoic.
But damn,
So,
those lips. Kawaii.
To give them a fighting chance, we have to assume that they are always in command. So on the bridge of Chipotle Lime and Salt Tortilla Chips Aardvark. And so
I almost made chili. Can you imagine if they'd been in command of the chili aardvark? Cooley in command of the chili aardvark.
Nico, could Ada and Dulcinea take Cooley the capital in a fight?
Well, I mean, Dulcinea, who we've never established, that is the name of my Mech girlfriend. Dulcinea, as you pointed out on the break, was once an all-powerful machine god for like 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they could take this. This person's been hardened by tragedy. What the fuck has Ada done?
They're also piloting a tier 5 carrier versus your tier 3
Yeah, that's
mech.
fucking terrifying. This person's gonna look down at me from the Chipotle lime and salt chip aardvark and just blow my poor little immunocompromised bitch off the face of the earth. And you know what? That's fair. So no, that's a no from me, dog. Alice? Carrier versus carrier.
Alice, it's a little more equal for you. You're carrier versus carrier. Do you think Taya could take Cooley in a fight?
So here's how this goes, right? So we're 2 ships of the line. We meet deep space, hurling railguns at each other. We close the distance. Our Astirs are fighting in close space. There's flak going off and everything. It comes down to the point where we're danger for danger, and we're both getting used to it. And then, we've got to take it extreme. Ram into him, right? Ramming speed. And then I've got a board. The captain's got a board. I have my own Marine party. My character has a Marine party too. We're boarding them. We're fighting hallway to hallway. We're killing technicians. We're just going at it. They're taking us left and right. And my character gets up to the bridge and we have that, that penultimate moment. And my character goes, hey, maybe we don't need to fight. We can talk this out. And they pull out their sword and go to slash my character down. But unfortunately, they have a mundane approach, and I have an arcane mantle, so it pops off, and I kill that bitch!
Yes!
Wait, mundane's good against arcane, isn't it?
Yep, you got it completely backwards, so Taya thought she had it.
Taya dies. I die. It's a good fight, but unfortunately, I'm relying on my crew, and I can't rely on them here.
And they all got married to the bridesmaids.
Yeah,
all the Marines got married to the bridesmaids.
Yeah.
Captain Cooley the Capital comes out of this one unscathed. Not unscathed, but victorious.
Ada has a PhD in for what?
You know what the difference between his character and mine is? Mine learned how to fuck.
No, yours did not.
You don't know that.
Taya was busy mastering the sword, okay?
No, the arcane mantle.
Clearly.
Oh,
the arcane mantle. That was beautiful. Alice, you gave us a beautiful piece of fiction.
That was gorgeous. I felt like I was looking at a painting.
I love ship-to-ship combat. I will argue that a mech carrier is a mech in itself. That's my argument. White base is a mech. I love this person that we've built. We're going to post this full sheet on the web zone, right?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Good.
In lieu of a flash transmission, I somehow got a real life British person to talk to me. So, do you guys?
They're real?
Yeah, they're real. And Briar is their legal name.
It's really powerful.
What are your final thoughts on this beautiful little thing that we have in our hands here? Alice.
My final thoughts are, the next time you're sitting down with your little group of nerds, you fucking nerds, to play a game, and you're like, you know what? I think it's time to start another Pathfinder game. We really like playing Pathfinder in this fucking fantasy universe. You know what else you can have in a fantasy universe? Fucking mechs. Pick this shit up. One of the example ones they have is the carrier is a fly and they're microscopic, fighting like ants and shit. You could do anything. Play Armour Astir, pick this shit up. Don't just play the same old goddamn bullshit TTRPGs. Get something with that spice, that flavor, that Briar in it. Nico?
My final thoughts are co-signed, because that was some real shit.
Wait, also, thanks to everybody who contributed to this, to the play testing, and to the community that continues to go on. Seeing all the cool playbooks that come out of this has been really cool.
And it's also really fun anytime Brian comes to us and it's like, hey, I got an update from the Discord, something's changed, or hey, I got a fucked up idea from the Discord, really excited to implement this on your lives. And we're just like, I'm so glad you're having fun. I'm gonna get hurt. You know, sometimes you get hurt.
But in a good way. As a masochist. Anyway, Brian, what are your thoughts?
Shout outs to Briar. Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you.
Shout outs to everyone on the Armour Astir Discord.
Thank you.
Y'all are like a really, like genuinely, I have been on some weird Discord servers in my time, and Armour Astir is one of them in a good way.
Freaks. We love you, freaks.
Y'all are the best freaks around, other than my own freaks, so I just have to hold closer in my heart. So yeah, we're freaks around here. Pilots, remember, you can reach out for advice from the team at our email, questions@osgpod.com, and non-pilots can send general questions or feedback to the same address. You can also catch up with us on social media. There are links all over the place for updates and more. Make sure to check back in 2 weeks when we'll be discussing robot jocks.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Movies are back, baby.
Until then, goodbye. I love you.
Goodbye. I love you.
Goodbye. I love you.